We're live.
Hi, my name is Carol, and we're streaming live from Faith Church and the Vine Bookstore in Dyer, Indiana. And we are on our 5th week of the Lassoed by Marriage Romance Collection. And our week to be our MC, and she'd like to do an introduction for Rebecca.
Hi, coming to you from Montana. This is Angela Breidenbach, and I'm one of the authors of the Lassoed by Marriage Romance Collection, as Carol just introduced. And it's my pleasure to get to MC all the rest of the authors as we welcome you here to our online and in-person book club. I'd like to introduce to you today Rebecca Jepson, and she is quite the lady. And she's from my home state, Nevada. So that's kind of fun. We've had some really fun training times together, getting to know each other and learn a little bit about each other's family and writing style. Because contrary to popular belief, we actually don't write our stories together. So we got the chance to meet after the book was already contracted. So it's been really fun meeting with Rebecca. And she is a homebody who loves a good book, a cup of freshly ground coffee, and all things autumn. She dreamed of being a writer since she was 13 and has been creating stories ever since. She's traveled extensively to places that inspire her stories. Her favorite destinations include, get this, Russia, New England, and the Alaskan wilderness. She does live in sunny Reno, Nevada, and has a software engineer husband named Mike. But what's interesting is she just told me privately that Missoula, Montana was one of her favorite places, one of the most beautiful in the world. Isn't that the case, Rebecca?
Sure.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you share with us what you have today, and then we will open up for questions.
Absolutely. It is so good to see all you ladies there in Dyer, Indiana. Am I saying that right, Dyer?
Yes.
Okay, good. When I was younger, I learned something very interesting about Indiana, or at least about Indianapolis. I'm not sure it's true of the whole state. That was that for part of the year, you are all on Central Time, and for the other part, you're on Eastern Time. Is that true?
Correct.
That's so interesting to me. But, a few years ago, I went to a writers' conference in Indianapolis, and the thing that stood out most to me was how moist the air was there. It was like my skin was going, ah. But then I'm from Nevada, and as you might imagine, we don't have much moisture here. My husband and I moved here shortly after he graduated college for his job, and we left the beautiful, lush, green state of Oregon for Reno. But the good news is that God made streams in the desert for us, and it turns out we actually love it here. We're at the base of the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains, just 45 minutes from Lake Tahoe, and it's almost always sunny. Well, this winter has been snowy, but that's good because it fills up our lakes and rivers, which we sorely needed. But Nevada is definitely drier than Indiana. Recently on a blog interview, I was asked, what do you love most about your hero and your heroine in this story? Not only did the question strike me as an interesting one, it also immediately put me at ease. This was something I could talk about. To me, one of the best parts about writing historical fiction is that I get to learn about floor-length gowns, bustles and hoops, traveling in horse-drawn carriages, or attending fancy balls. Don't get me wrong, all of that is fun. But what fascinates me even more is learning how a particular historical setting may have shaped my character. I ask myself, what would it be like living in this era, in this set of circumstances, in this world I've put my character in? How would I really feel sailing on the Mayflower, traveling west in a covered wagon, or making my debut at an oh-so-proper ball. When I created Henry Baxter for a highbrow hoodwink, I wasn't only thinking single dimpled grin, hair wavy with a hint of auburn, or aristocratic manner. Henry Baxter, second son of one of the most prominent, fictional of course, families in 19th century Denver, was molded in part from a particular paragraph of one of the books I read for my research. The book is called Mrs. Astor's New York by Eric Homburger. Bear in mind that though Henry's story is set in Denver, his mother's people are from New York City, as were many of the old name who's who families in Denver at that time. Much of Denver's upper crust was comprised of former members of the old guard from the East. This particular paragraph in Mrs. Astor's New York refers to two brothers in the Astor family, John, the older, and William, the younger. He, John, was the oldest son, and the Astors fervently believed in primogeniture. Younger sons could expect less solicitous care. While his older brother began to work in the offices of the Astor estate, William graduated in 1849, nearly at the head of his class, and was allowed, perhaps encouraged would be a better term, to spend several years traveling in Egypt, the Holy Land, Turkey, and Greece, returning with an enthusiastic amateur interest in Oriental art and literature. Regarded as clever, older brother, and farmer, terms like outgoing, spirited, and polished were used about the young man. Upon his return to New York, he entered his father's office on 26th Street, where he remained, looking for something to do until his father's death in 1875. There was no real place for a younger son in the family business, and he received no encouragement to involve himself in affairs which were controlled by his father and older brother. Back in New York, he devoted himself to a love of ease and comfort, and how dreadful the words ease and comfort were to maternal ears, with their associations of dandyism and dissipation. That phrase, "there was no real place for a younger son in the family business," really struck me. Here I had this second son of a prominent family. In my mind, Henry was living in his illustrious brother's shadow, and then I read this. It's a perfect launching off point for Henry's character, this no real place theme. It gives him some baggage to overcome. And that baggage became the answer to my blog interviewer's question. I like how Henry, formerly a black sheep, steps up and fills his brother's vacated shoes. He does it with a competence his family did not think him capable of. Underneath his prior, couldn't-care-less exterior, there is a beating heart in Henry, an honesty with himself and others that runs deep. Now with Katie, what shaped her most was her disgraced status as an unwed mother. Though this aspect of her character is sad, it's very true of the times, and I couldn't ignore the profound impact it would have had on her. Reading from a 1925 case study on unwed mothers, this is a little later than Katie's time, her delinquency, made extremely difficult to conceal because of her maternity, is of the kind punished most drastically by society, and the girl fears not only suffering for herself, but shame and humiliation for her loved ones. Quoting from a bureau social worker in 1957, the primary reason that a girl gave up her baby was not because she was unable to take care of it or did not have feeling for it, but rather because she wanted the baby protected from its illegitimate status. Excerpt from a book called Strangers and Kin by Barbara Melosh. Stigma is written on the body as the young woman's pregnancies mark them as illicitly sexual. Recounting her stay in a maternity home, Carol Schaefer recalls the residents' preoccupation with stretch marks. We were all concerned whenever a little line would appear. We were terrified that stretch marks would brand us forever as unwed mothers. A woman named Margaret Mormon, when her doctor told her that the stretch marks would remain after she gave birth, said, "I hadn't realized there would be visible scars. I had been told again and again that I would give my baby up and put all this behind me. How could that happen if I, like Hester Prynne with her scarlet A, bore the sign of my disgrace forever? And as late as 1963, we have this statement from a paper written by a social work student. Our society just does not accept illegitimacy. So clear back in the 19th century, there's no doubt Katie would have faced a very real shame by polite society. Any guilt she felt over her past would have been magnified 100 times over again by the disgust of those around her. Henry's view of her at first, his mother's view of her, and of Georgie too, are, I think, completely realistic to that time. I also feel that the burden Katie carried over her past is completely relatable to us today. Every one of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, has things in our past that we're not proud of. And Katie's story gave me the perfect opportunity to communicate something very special. For several years, my husband and I were youth shepherds at our church. One Sunday morning, the youth pastor taught this beautiful lesson on the passage in Acts about the Apostle Peter's vision of the sheet of unclean animals being lowered down from heaven. The words he spoke that morning rang in my ears all the way home. Then later, when I was thinking about Katie and her view of her past, the shame she must have felt during an era when unwed mothers were truly treated as ruined, I remembered those particular words, spoken first to Peter, then later to a group of high school students on a Sunday morning. And with my youth pastor's permission, I wrote his message into Katie's story. I wrote one phrase in particular, paraphrased from Scripture, as if it were a deep, assertive, powerful command from God himself. Do not call unclean what I have made pure. Because of those words, Katie was able to stop dwelling on the past and enjoy the present. And I so hoped that there would be others out there who would too. But there are some things in the past that shape us in a good way, aren't there? When I was a kid, I had this huge imagination. I'd make up all kinds of crazy stories and then recruit my siblings to act them out with me. There were 5 of us, so I rarely faced a shortage of recruits. People started noticing my vivid imagination and would tell me, "You'd be a good writer." To some ears, that comment might not have gone very far, but oh, did my ears ever perk up. Then one day when I was 13, a school librarian from our church gave me a brochure about a written and illustrated contest for students. I took that brochure home and pored over it. I looked at it over and over, just dreaming of winning that contest. I wrote my very first book, then and there, a sad saga about a character called Benny Norval. His story is Benny Norval and the New Baby, and I actually brought it with you to show you today. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Benny, and as you might be able to see, he is daydreaming about the new baby that his mother is going to have soon, and he wants it very much to be a boy. And here's why. All of his brothers have younger brothers except him. He wants a younger brother to teach to ride bikes and go fishing and things that little boys sometimes do. And there's another problem that Benny has. As you can see, all of his other family members' antennas stick up nice and straight. But Benny's droop, and he is sad about that. So then there's a whole adventure that Benny goes on that I won't subject you to today. But toward the end, his mother has the baby, and it's not a boy. And here's Benny. He's kind of sad. He's going up, following his dad up to see the new baby. Well, there the sadness ends, because although the baby is a girl, she has droopy antennas too, just like Benny. Well, ladies, Poor Benny did not win the contest, though he held his own. He received a very respectable Top 100 award. But my dream continued to grow. So did my love of reading. It started, funnily enough, even before I learned to read. At night, my mom would read aloud to us kids while my dad was away at work. He was a fireman, so he'd be gone for 24, sometimes even 48 hours at a time. I'm guessing Mom read to us to maintain her own sanity. Anyway, she read children's classics like the Laura Ingalls Little House books and The Secret Garden. Then when I was old enough to read on my own, I devoured the Bobbsey Twins, Boxcar Children, then on to Trixie Belden and Nancy Drew. When I was a teenager, I couldn't get enough of the early Christian fiction authors like Jeanette Oke, Gilbert Morris, Michael Phillips, Judith Pella. They really inspired my dream of being a writer. Since then, it's been quite a ride. There have been highs, lows, discouragements, and oddly, things that I thought were setbacks that somehow turned out to be blessings. So I wanted to take this opportunity to encourage any one of you who, like myself and Rapunzel from Tangled, have got a dream. The route to its fulfillment will probably be different than we'd pictured, God's timing and ways being often different than our own. I have no secret formula for the journey, just cry out to Him, friends. When we're at a loss, He knows about doors and pathways we never would have imagined. Jeremiah 33:3 says it best. Call to me, and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and mighty things which you do not know. I am so thankful for this chance to be here with you awesome ladies, and I'm so glad you've taken the time to read these novellas and come out tonight to chat with me. And now that's all I had to share, so I'd like to give you the chance to ask any questions that you might have.
Awesome. So I have put the camera on the book club, so it's time for you guys to ask away any questions that you have. And while you're thinking of them, I'm going to ask a really quick question. While you were showing us the book that you did when you were 13, right?
Yes.
Did you do the art for that book too?
I did the art, and these pictures I actually redid when I was about 19, but they are very similar, just a little better than the ones I did when I was 15.
Wow, it was really cute.
Oh, thank you. It was a fun project.
What questions are there in this the group in Dyer, Indiana?
Sure. I really enjoyed your story. I liked how Katie put her son before her and before her needs and wants, and I thought it was really important, and it showed she had great love for him.
Oh, thank you.
How did you, the mother, Henry's mother, she was very cold and stoic. How did you make her loving when it came to the baby? Being down and, you know, she stayed in the room with the baby. How did that come to be?
Carol, can you repeat the question?
She said that she was referring to Margaret, the mother. In the story, she's portrayed very cold, except the incident where Georgie had gotten hurt and she was sitting in the room through the night. So she was just asking how that transpired, or maybe the process that you went through in writing that, and how you brought it together.
I guess just his fall down the stairs kind of triggered something in me that I guess for me, if somebody's hurt, it's just instinctive in me to want to help them, and I think that's where I started to just kind of bring together. In my mind, she'd been coming up to him, but in a novella, it's a little harder to bring out that whole process because you have a limited number of words, as I'm sure some of the other authors have shared with you. And so I think just the fact that he had hurt himself made her feel very maternal toward him and tuck him in that night and spend some time with him. I'm not sure if that answers the question or not.
No, that was fine.
Okay.
I have a question. Is it hard to me, like if I was Katie, I would have told Henry right away, oh, no, they were the ones I was like, I would have blurted it out right away, like, but, you know, you keep it until the very end. Like, is it hard for you, too, not to tell? Like, I'm sure it's part of the, you know, plan of the story to make it go
Right.
But, is it hard for you to keep it in? Like, not just blur out the truth?
Yes, I would have blurted it out right away. But it, like you said, it was part of the plot, and it was crucial to the plot in many ways. And so I kind of saved that for the end. And I think part of the reason that I could do that was that they had a very stiff, formal relationship with each other, and I think she was shy to talk to him at times. And so I think you could maybe make that justification for how long it took her to tell him that. And plus, his view of her being negative at first, I think that too made her not want to just share things with him because she was intimidated by his view of her, and she felt that shame in her own life, and it was just intensified by his view.
How do you prepare to write a story? Do you, I know you read us in those books, you know, about the conception of the unwed mother, but to make a whole story around that, how do you prepare for that?
Well, I take a lot of walks and I brainstorm with my husband, and he helps me sometimes just bouncing ideas off of him, gives me ideas. Sometimes he has an idea, or sometimes I just, like I look at a book of paintings, and sometimes just seeing something in a painting, maybe a small cityscape or a broken down fence in the countryside, sparks an idea. And then I just kind of go with it. I just keep saying, well, what if this? And what if this? And I had wanted to do a story of two brothers, and I had wanted a story to revolve around a small child. And I think the main thing that brought out the Highbrow Hoodwink was I want a whole family's world to be shaken and turned upside down by a little tiny child. And that just kind of started snowballing, and it was a fun one to write.
When you do dialogue between two people in a story, do you like rehearse that, you know, orally with somebody else, or do you just think of it in your head?
I think of it in my head, and then I read it out loud to see how it sounds on my ear. And sometimes, to be honest, don't tell anyone this, I kind of do the voices. Like, I make my voice more deep when I'm doing the man, and I actually just recite the scene out almost like I'm watching a movie, so the dialogue, just to see how it is on the ear.
Maybe you should voice your own audiobook.
Maybe.
I was very surprised at the twist with the investigator Simon, that he was looking at for the love for, you know, Margaret instead of for Katie. It was quite the surprise.
I loved that too.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh, thank you. Yes, that was a strange twist when originally this book was going to be a full-length novel, and that twist was even weirder. But I scaled it down for the sake of the novel. At first, I had Katie being herself, kind of almost royalty from Europe herself, but there really wasn't words to put that into a shorter one.
I also like the part where Katie and Alice followed Henry and his brother Thomas, you know, through the alleyways of the bad neighborhood to see what they were up to, because I thought that really showed spunk, whereas previously Katie was so quiet and demure because, you know, she was this fallen woman, and then finally she showed some spunk and just got up and did something.
Oh, thank you. That was a really fun scene to write. And I'm kind of a little bit in some ways like Katie, where I actually get more gumption if I have a girlfriend with me. And so I thought, if Alice is with her together, they will do this. And also, I have more gumption for somebody else than for myself. So, like Katie, to me, in that scene, she was going to take care of Alice, and that's why partly they, that's why they were following them, was because Alice was worried Thomas was not exactly doing good things. So I thought, well, if I was worried about a friend, like especially a close friend like my sister or someone, I would do what needed doing. And so I thought that was fun, and Katie too. Appreciate that.
I thought for sure that Thomas was embezzling. But I had a whole thing that he was. That's I don't know why. No, that's too. Oh. And I did like that Katie ended up having like, an ally. Like she did have, like Alice was nice to her. And she did have somebody in the house.
Oh, good. Yes, I'm glad. That kind of relieved me too, because Margaret was formidable, so it was good to have Alice there too. Did you say you thought Thomas was embezzling?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I could see that, because I intentionally made his actions a little suspicious at first, just to kind of bring in some intrigue.
So, Rebecca, this is kind of awesome one, but I was trying to find some books, other books that you have done. Can you tell us a little bit more of other books that we could find of yours?
Well, this is actually my published work, other than a story that I wrote for Focus on the Family's Clubhouse magazine, which is a kids magazine. So stay tuned, because this is the first one, and I'm currently working on a full-length historical romance novel that I'm pretty excited about. It is set in the 1880s also, and it is also in Colorado, but I made up the town this time. And it's about, again, it's about a wealthy family, and so I'm pretty excited about that one. So stay tuned.
When do you think about that, so that could be available?
You know, I don't know. Hopefully soon. I wish I could tell you, but I'm still writing it, so
Okay.
it might be a little while. I'm pretty far along. I'm like on chapter 20, so it's moving along.
Okay, because I did look it up, but I was having a hard time, and that explains it.
That does explain it, and I'm glad you're looking, because I would love to get some more material out there for you to read. I'm really pleased that you all read this book and that you've been reading all the novellas. I've been reading them too. They're really fun. This is a fun book, and I'm glad you all could come out and that you're reading these.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Why are you focusing on Colorado? Is there something that draws you or intrigues you about Colorado?
Actually, no. At first, a Highbrow Hoodwink was set in New York City, but we decided to fit the Old West theme. My agent and I talked a little bit, and she suggested moving it to Denver, because I needed a pretty decent-sized city. And in the Old West, at the year that I wanted the story to take place, there wasn't a really big city in the Old West except for Denver that we could think of. So that's why it ended up at Denver. As to this new book I'm writing, the reason that it is in Colorado is because I wanted it to take place in a city where there's hot springs and where there's really clean air, because the mother of one of my characters, the reason they move is because of her health. And so I wanted there to be a place where she could go to get cleaner, better air for her health. And so I thought some of those towns in Colorado have that sort of thing, and so I made up a town in Colorado.
Oh, I think it was like Glenwood Springs or something.
No, I based it off of Glenwood Springs, but I decided I wanted to just make up my own and give it its own name and kind of its own fun stuff. So, but it is based on Glenwood Springs.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks.
I think you alluded in this book too that a lot of people were going there because of consumption.
Right. Yes, people moved there because they were pretty desperate with consumption, and Of course, it didn't heal them, but it did help symptoms, I think, to be near the hot springs. It's soothing, I think, for the lungs, and the better air would certainly be soothing.
I just want to say congratulations, too, on this, your first effort, because we all really like the book. So congratulations, you did a great job.
Oh, thank you so much. You all are making this very, very fun and very easy. I'm so glad that you got a chance to read it and that you enjoyed it.
Well, we're encouraging you so you'll like more.
That's awesome. What other thoughts oops, somebody froze. What other thoughts or questions do you have there at the store? I think we froze here for a second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts or questions or experiences with the book? Questions for Rebecca about her writing life or anything else?
Since this was supposed to be a full-length book, or you originally, is there anything that you could tell us about what happened after it ends here?
I had something after it with Georgie, but I can't remember. I'm so sorry.
Comedy for writers is often if we write a book, we're on to the next book, and sometimes we have to go back and actually read our own story to be able to remember the specifics of that one. So it was fun going back to do that, you know, for some of mine, but I can see how that would be an issue.
I'm definitely picturing a happy ending for the three of them, and I'm picturing that they have more kids and probably make a lot of trips to England to visit Margaret and the Duke. Thomas and Alice, I pictured them doing well. I had in the full-length novel, I had Alice have some issues with infertility, and so that was a whole another pretty big aspect of the original book. And I can't remember how I ended that. But yeah, that was another thing between Alice and Henry, is she was thinking he didn't love her anymore because she wasn't producing a child for them. So anyway, but I'm sure they all lived happily.
Well,
in Russia.
Moscow.
Oh, okay.
I worked in an orphanage there when I was younger as a mission trip.
how long were you there?
I was there 4.5 months, so
Wow.
a while.
Do you speak Russian?
A little.
Wow.
Your face says, please don't ask me to speak it.
I can tell you something in Russian, if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay. Осторожно, двери закрываются, следующая станция метро Bridal.
And now translate.
Please be very careful. The door is closing. The next station is Bridal. They go on the subway over and over. That's how I know it so well.
Well, I think we're done with our questions here. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Oh, thank you. And we'll look forward to your next novels.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being with us there in the store. And thank you so much, Rebecca, for being with us. And next, our author is going to be Amy Lillard. And so we'll be with you same time, same station, Lassoed by Marriage Romance Collection. And I'm just really looking forward to introducing you to one more of my new friends, too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.